I think it's about 10 years since I last uploaded a chess basics tutorial, so it's about time to finish the first part of the series. In tutorial 1.8, we learned about check and checkmate. Now we're going to learn about stalemate. Put bluntly, a winning game just ended up as a draw, and if you're lucky, a losing game ended up as a draw and not as a loss. A stalemate means that the king cannot move anywhere. If the king is in check and cannot move anywhere, it's checkmate and game over. If the king is not in check and can't move, it's a stalemate. That means it's a draw. There's more to it, which we'll get back to later in the video, and that's when there are more pieces on the board, but let's just concentrate on what we have right now. Since this is chess basics, I'm gonna really teaspoon this in. So if it was white to move now, that would be a check, right? Because white could actually take the king in the next move. And the only way to get out of this is either to take the queen, which you cannot do because you don't have a piece to do it with, or you could block the check, but you don't have a piece to do that either, so you have to move your king, right? And if the king moves here, I could go here, and that would also indicate a check, right? I could take the king, hypothetically. Now we're back to where we were. Now the king can only move one square at a time, which means it can move here and it can move here. But in this case, white dominates the 7th rank, meaning that this area would put the king in check, right? So the king cannot move here, it cannot move here, and it cannot move here. King can only move one square at a time. Now you can't checkmate with just the queen. You also need your king in this scenario here. So in a perfect world, you'd start moving up your king, right? And the next move here would be a checkmate because the king has nowhere to go. It can't move here. It will still be in check by the queen. It can't move here. Still checkmate by the queen, and it can't move next to the opposing king. So this is actually checkmate. That's the perfect world. But once in a while you just blunder. Let's say you wanna nudge the king towards a corner, and your queen here goes here first. The king can't go here, right? Because it would be right next to the queen, and that would indicate an illegal move. You can't put yourself in check. So the king has to move. It moves here. You nudge it a little further. It moves here. You keep nudging it a little bit more. And now what? It's stalemate. And the reason it's stalemate is because right now the king cannot move here next to the queen. It can't move here because the queen dominates the 7th rank and it would put itself in check. And of course it can't move here. So right now the king has nowhere to move, and that means a stalemate. A winning game just became a draw. There are more variations of king and queen versus king that gives you a stalemate, but you get the general idea here. But over to a new example. You want to mate the black king. You're starting to move up your king. King moves, keep moving up, and then you want to get your horse involved, and you move your horse here, and that's actually a stalemate because the king cannot move. It can't move here or here because of the queen here, right? But at the same time, it cannot move here because the horse or the knight dominates that square, and that means this is also a stalemate. This happens in tournaments. It happens a lot in speed chess. So the golden rule to remember is if it's not a check or a checkmate, you have to figure out and know that the opposing king has a move to make. Otherwise, it's a stalemate. Same situation as earlier, but we have a few more pieces on the board. We have a pawn for white and we have a pawn for black. So let's do what we did before. Queen moves here, the king goes here, we try to nudge it a little bit more, king goes here, and the queen goes here. And it's still a stalemate, and the reason why is, yes, black has one more piece here, the pawn, but the pawn cannot move. That's not, the pawn can't take like this, which we've gone through earlier. So this is also a stalemate. How about now? We have taken away white's pawn. We still have the black pawn here. And if we do the same thing again, I like to nudge the king towards the corner, and others like the same thing. Not everybody, but it's an example. I move my king. I move my queen here. The king goes here. I move here. Is this a stalemate? No, because right now black does have a legal move, and that is to move this pawn towards the first rank, and that gives you a promotion to another piece like a queen. We haven't gone through promotion yet, but we really don't want the enemy to get its pawn all the way down the file. So this is not a stalemate. If you are playing as white in this situation or others similar, don't get greedy, which means you don't really have to take that pawn. If you blunder trying to get black's king in mate and you're about to make a stalemate, you know that black has to move this pawn, and by that time you would have put black's king in checkmate. Now, if you are playing as black in this situation, you really want white to take that pawn, because if white takes that pawn, he could actually blunder and put you in stalemate, and that means your loss would actually become a draw. That said, and we're going to move a little further out of stalemate here. If you look at the situation, white to move means white is going to win the game, and we can do that very easily here. And black is still moving this pawn because black wants to get rid of that pawn. White moves, black, white, black, white, black, and that's a checkmate, right? Let's say it's black to move, and black moves his pawn, and white is about to checkmate, right? But black promotes his pawn to a queen, and right now that is a check, and that means this game would most likely end up a draw. Very difficult to win when both sides has a king and a queen, which means that you have some decisions to make. Playing white, if you have the possibility to let black keep one of his pawns, do that. Um, if you are about to get the black king into a stalemate, you know that that pawn is a legal move that has to be done. If you're playing black, you want to try to get rid of that pawn. White sometimes gets greedy and wants to take it, which gives you an extra chance to actually get a stalemate. Otherwise, you just have to keep moving that pawn. Um, that's the video. That's what a stalemate is, and it actually makes a win or a loss a draw.